I first got into collecting guitars when I was 6, when I got my first guitar lesson. It was a couple years later that I got my first guitar given to me by my stepbrother. Probably high school was when I bought my first electric. My first guitar was an acoustic when I was 8 years old. I played in various rock bands in the past years, and one guitar gets you one sound and you just get stupid with the collection. It just keeps getting more and more. You get one guitar and then this guitar has a different sound, and you hear something on a record and you say, I like the sound of that guitar, how do I get the sound of that guitar? And then you find that you have to buy that guitar or something very similar to it. I really collect guitars for what sound comes out of them. There are, granted, certain makes of guitars that are well known that make a certain sound, and you can't reproduce them realistically with any other brand name. Many guitar companies make copies of certain guitars which are popular because they only have that certain sound and there's no other guitar that has that sound. There's a collection here I'd like to show you. Here we have a Les Paul guitar. Many people don't know this, even people who own one, but Les Paul was an actual person who existed. He is actually a pioneer of the multi-track studio, which many musicians who are in the recording industry now know quite well of, that multi-tracking leads you to a record contract. Les Paul and his wife Mary Ford were the pioneers of multi-tracking, and basically it started out as a, I guess you'd call it an endorsement, putting his name on the Gibson guitar, and it's still there. It's a very good sounding guitar, very popular, probably one of the best known guitars. Next we have an SG, which is a bit lighter. It's more of a lead type of guitar. It really has quite a chunky sound to it when you get it going. Back there we have another SG. It's a newer make. Here is an acoustic. You can hear it a lot louder than an electric guitar, of course, right now, but that will change once you plug in one of the electrics. Over here is one of my favorites. It's a 79 Strat. It's been repainted. Got a nice neck to it. As you can see here, it's got like 3 pickups. Is what they call a Fender P bass or a precision bass. If you're listen to almost any rock record has this or something like it. This is what they call a 12-string. It's a Fender acoustic. What it has 12 strings for is, if you look close, it appears that there's 6 strings, but what happens is each string that you're about to play is doubled up. So instead of when you play your E string, there's two different strings with that same tuning, but the bottom ones have an octave. So you can get a very chimey sound. This guitar back here, I just picked it up for like $100, and just for hacking around, it's great. This goes to show you, you don't have to spend a lot of money. Depending on how much you want to play the guitar and what level you want to get to of perfection, I guess you call it that. I don't think there is such a thing. Playing guitar can start out, you could learn the basics maybe in about 3-4 months, depending on how quick you learn. Like that would mean playing a D, a C, a G chord, which are basic chords that almost everybody knows, to playing quite involved licks or riffs, which can take you years, maybe 5-6 years before you start to come into your own, have your own style. One thing to remember is most guitars are made out of wood. Living in Canada, you know that if you go outside it's quite cold, there's condensation, you come back inside. The best thing to do is to put your guitar in a guitar case, hopefully hard shell. They're a little more expensive, and one of the other things to think about is if you have to take the guitar somewhere at any distance, you take it outside, and let's say you're outside for half an hour or more. When you bring it to your buddy's place to jam or whatever, don't take it out of the guitar case right away. Your guitar's cold, there's condensation, and it's made out of wood most likely, and it'll warp. The steel truss rods, which are up the neck of a guitar, help keep the neck from warping because it's your first piece of your guitar to go. The reason I collect guitars in the first place is to make music, and one of the best ways for me to hear my music is in my own recording studio. Not everybody has this, granted, but I have that luxury of an 8-track with a mixing board. You know, like I can pick out a sound I like from a favorite guitar and put that with a certain drum beat that I have, or a bass riff, and depending on the type of the guitar, it can get out the sound I want. The advantage to having a multi-track recording system is I can record myself playing guitar, drums, bass, vocals, and I can combine many of my guitar collections if I want. Let's say a Strat with a Les Paul or an SG, and have a new blend of the various guitar sounds from the guitars that I have. On the subject of domestic versus import guitars, you could take the Fender Stratocaster, for example, or the Telecaster. I'd heard many times that the Japanese make was inferior to the American make, and that's generally what's known in the music industry for value mostly. I think sound-wise it is a better guitar, the American make, that is. However, I've picked up a Japanese make guitar for playing purposes, and even a Mexican Telecaster. And really, it's not like it's hand and fist for the most part. You know, like it is a good guitar. It's just if you want that extra really good sound, an American made, there's a reason why that they are recommended. The other aspect of collecting guitars is they're very good investments. If it's a very good quality guitar, you could take example is a Gibson or a Fender, because they're very prominent names, especially, although there's many other names like Ibanez and Martin comes to mind for acoustics anyways. Martin actually, in particular, you could get some acoustic guitars which, depending on their age, may be $2,000, $5,000, $6,000, and even more for a piece of wood. The guitar itself might have cost only maybe $100 in its time, like 50 years ago. You could take this guitar here, for example, this Gibson SG. It's a 1970. I know that there's a lot of people who've asked me if I was going to sell it, and I thought, over my dead body. It's just like not just the sound of it, but this one is quite personal to me, anyways. But it's partly the age why somebody figures, well, an SG from the 70s got to be worth something. The many parts on it, which you will hear on many records, especially if you're into rock music. There's the strings, of course. That's what I just hit. Now, here for it to be heard through an amplifier, these two things here, these rectangular things, they're called pickups. They take the sound from the strings, the reverberations, and transport that sound out through this here, which is an output. You put a guitar cord into it, a 1/4-inch jack. It goes into your amplifier. So like there's a lot of electronics. These knobs here, these two are volume and these two are tone. The volume, of course, it measures the amount of sound going out of the guitar into the amplifier, because you can have different sounds depending which pickup. Like this, for instance, is the volume for this pickup, I believe, and that one's for this pickup. And they're corresponding tone controls. So you can have many different sounds. This here is the pickup switch. This position here is what they call the lead position. This pickup here picks up the lead pickup, they call it. It's commonly known that way. In the middle position, it's both pickups, and the up position is what they call the rhythm pickup. This here is what they call the bridge, and this is like an end piece. The bridge is where the strings stop, or where they're saddled at the end, because it's between the bridge and this part up here, which is what is called the nut on the guitar, and that determines the length of the string, which gives you your tone. Up here, of course, is the tuning pegs. Probably get a better look like this. And they just make the string tighter or looser, like that. Now, the other part, of course, you want to make a sound out of your guitar. These, all what you see here are frets. You press down on the string and it goes up in sound. Lost the pick.